Good morning and welcome to the Crypto Day Morning. Today's date that comes in that of Saturday, the 23rd of February, 2019. All bets, trades of the like, that's within each his own risk and their own reward. We'll start off within Varrock Coin, and what I'm looking at here is the possibility for the fourth time that on the weekly Varrock Coin is able to get above a declining 18 and then close the following week above it. It's a little close to where it is now. It's at 10.7. The 18's at 97. And it's Saturday, so the week's almost over. Well, this is the fourth time. Let's take a look at the previous three other occasions. As we scroll back, this isn't a downtrend, so getting above here and this doesn't count. That's moving up sideways. And in here, this was a downtrend. It had up move and then it closed above. Okay, so that worked out good. And then in here, got above it on this one. Now this one didn't close above it, but you still got to give it the benefit of the doubt. If it does something like this, if it closed the next period above it, which it did, then I count that. So I'm counting this. It obviously made a few matching highs and went down. So that one didn't work out. Now this one here, well, that was just a major move. And, well, you follow up with definitely that situation. It's still had a good game from that point on, going from the 41 handle, making it up to 230. And that's that. Those are the situations in which that has had those parameters. I don't know what I'm looking for. Those particulars, maybe. Let's look at this on the daily chart. We'll move on to Bitcoin there after that, which isn't too far off. So amongst the daily, what has occurred is some pretty large volume on this breakout on February the 7th, which had several days correcting amongst the 18 and upper trend, higher lows, supporting this level of previous resistance that it left from last. And then on big volume again, which can only be a big volume pretty much almost every time when you have moves of this magnitude. But again, supporting where it came from its previous move again. And it's got a declining move around here, just like it did here. Getting above is what it needs to do. And if it's able to do that, well, so far so good amongst its move that it has had. And therefore, if it's able to break out, then we'd see what we were looking at the weekly, and who knows how large this can go, because the previous few times it had successful moves leaving it, even the one with two great moves to satisfy the parameters, had good follow throughs there. If it doesn't, and you have this failed breakout, well, what would a failed breakout look like if it did something like this? You're in a big downtrend. I've seen it so many times. You have some sort of noticeable break above. Maybe at best you might continue to go sideways and establish your resistance for a sideways move. That's definitely something you can't throw out if it's not going to be a legitimate breakout. But if you do break down below the support at 64.80, I'd have to think that 27 might even be a little conservative. But that would be probably where I'd be looking as the next target. Even 25 to 22. I don't know what else we got for previous data before. There's been a lot of support at around 26, 27. So that's the number I'd be looking at if it breaks down below that as a failed move. But I mean, even breaking down below 27, you're talking, but who knows? And if you're saying, oh my goodness, there's no way this can go up because of whatever fundamental analysis, well, I don't know what that would be. And if you're saying it's got 100% because of it, again, I don't know that reason as well. It's attempting on the weekly to break above and revert the trend. That's it right now. Let's move this over to Bitcoin. We'll take a look at the Bitstamp index for longer term in a bit, but weekly chart with all these lines on here, daily chart, holding in there, staying above, but noticeably below this line, and even more noticeably above this one, which means it's pretty much retraced well over 50%. It has, not basically, it has. Over from here to here, holding for several days amongst this sideways consolidation. So on the 4 hour, and a lot of these moves, like I've been stating for some time, if it's going to go up or down, a lot of times it seems it's going to have a big move up and then or down and then just go sideways until it's ready for its next move. So there's your big move up and there's a sideways action, next big move, and it's been doing so again with sideways action. Resistance has been big. We have resistance here at around 39.62, 2, 3, 4 occasions here. It's about 39.50, 39.45, but it's in that general area. We got this low from in here at about 38.60, and then it was pierced higher on this timestamp at 38.75. It tested it again, and ever since lifting off of it, it hasn't been there back since. On that point, we see some shorter term support here at 39.15. The whole point of this is that it is making a very nice pattern of higher lows amongst a sideways pattern, which oftentimes is not going to be in an upward ascension, even if it's in a downward ascension like it was from the 8th of February through the 17th. That's still good. And the amount of time, 8th through the 17th, that's over 1 week, over 7 days, where it was congesting, deciding, looking at, reacting towards this gain, opportunity for people to sell the market a little bit higher than what it was before. If they were believing, oh my goodness, it's going to go up. If it goes up a bit, I'm just going to have to sell because I know it's just going to go back down. Well, there's not as many people doing that, obviously, because it didn't really have any down moves from this move. It was a successful breakout given this rally in here. And now the same thing. It's been, how long has it been since it's had this move? Well, first it was February 18th in the morning, and then extension later that night. So from that point, we're already 5 days into the exact same thing. People just realize, okay, this is what the current price is around this point. We're around 3,900, at least within this exchange. Some other ones can be noticeably different, like 3% on like the Bitfinex one, but throwing that aside, it has the exact same sort of look anyway. And we're seeing also order book fills when you have time. One of the things is when you want to buy this up, say it's February 10th, you're like, yeah, I want to buy, but I want to wait. Why do you want to wait? Because I want more sell orders to fill. We're talking big game players. Thus, once the sell orders start to fill, then doing a move like this, you can bring the market up lower, which means I want to buy an X amount of this. I don't want to bring this up from 35.60 to say, and then be buying at 42 or 43. That the orders fill in over these days, and then there'll be more dollars to get it to this point, and at that stage they can buy a lot more at a better dollar cost average, because say for example here they might buy at a dollar cost average of 37.50, where in here it might have been like 38.50. And same thing could be the case again as well. Now that works out on both sides as well, because if you're looking to sell short or you're looking to get out, any of that type of stuff, and you're looking at how much the order books are for the bids in here, you will need less Bitcoin to bring it back down to say 34.20 than you would have in here, because there'd be more buy orders that would fill over time. And again, sellers didn't come in. The same thing's happening now with all of these bids from like 37 all the way up to 38.60 over the last 5 days. People have been filling them in, but at the same point there have been more orders filled to sell at 4,000 and 4,050 and 41 and so on and so forth. Overall, as far as how this is looking, I think this is very productive. Let's take a quick look at the hourly. At this point we're at 5 days in choppy action, and that's what it's doing. But I do like how it's holding right now, really short term at the 39.20. Let's look at this more longer term again. We'll use this, and we'll finish it off within the TUSD, just because we can get the opposite view of such. There's really no other altcoins I want to go over for today's video. And amongst it, resistance established, and in here, this was an opportunity for the market to make that lower low. And at this stage, it was overextended from this high to the point where Well, if we're going to go bear market, we could go symmetrical down, which means you have this high. We're gonna make a higher low, a lower high, a higher low, but a lower high would be in store. So there's a possibility of a lower high in here. Starts to go down, but it supports this on a failed move, on a breakout. It's not going to be too long before you're not only going to go to the lows end, but it's going to flatten and or start to decline. Pretty much the opposite of it's going into place. And if we want to talk about the symmetricalness of this, that's where you're making an uptrend line on the low end. So we can just draw lines like that. And starting from this high, there we have it. As it goes, I'm going to make this, for importance, more of an ascending triangle within this level here, because if it gets above this point, then that really shows, especially if it gets above it and holds above it for a good decent amount of time, several days, 2 or 3, that would be the Achilles heel. That would be, okay, the chances for it to go down in here didn't happen. It's been a long period of time for it first went down to this area on November the 19th. It's been all of December, all of January, and pretty much all of February now. Over 3 months. And then it further went down to the middle of December to these big lows of the low 31, or above 31. Low 3000s, basically. And the time duration since then is 2.5 months. So it hasn't happened yet. There's been a sufficient amount of time. And now as it goes, because of that time factor, it's staying above here, puts extreme probability odds that this thing is ready to fill some of this empty space. And when we would look at it further on the longer term time frame, price action getting above 5,000, what would that mean for the weekly and the monthly? Well, let's take a look. Via the weekly, the price action has come to the 18. It did so pretty much in this period here, third period, holding and staying amongst this levels enough to flatten out the band, thus neutralize the down move. And you need to get above this to attempt to revert the trend. But at 5,000, that would be noticeably above it. It would be halfway basically from here to, and I'm saying that word too much, basically that is, but halfway between here and here. That's like a scream out attempt. Oftentimes you'd be expecting there'd be a high probability of going further to this level, but it's just that attempt to revert trend. And 5,000 in here is the test of near the 18 lows. And by the time March comes into play, which is only less than 1 week away, this will decline a little bit, because last month, let me get the numbers on here. Last month it was 5408. Now it's 5176. So therefore it's going to probably be in the high 4,000s come March. And that would be a test within it. It's not doing it in a downtrend. It's still in the correctionary move from the last point A low to point B high, because this is still sideways, barely going down. So as I was mentioning on the weekly, breaking it above the highs was just the attempt to revert the trend, and that's the exact polar opposite amongst this. The attempt to break support. And since then, it's been 3 sideways period with this month close to a completion. And if it goes up towards in here, it's more of that correctionary move, because as it's developing this support, it technically needs to break down in here to establish a bear market. But it still has to go to stage number 3. Stage 1, band flatten out. Stage 2, establish support. So far it's here. If it were to just instantly come down to here like this, then that would just be further established support. And then if it were to do something like this, come back, and then there would be your go back to the band, and then maybe does something like this. That would be as I would be looking for on reversal. For when we did this back in, when we look back at 2014, 2015 changeover, there was established support. There was back to the band, but it didn't do anything. It didn't do the next stage. Rather, it did the attempt to revert the trend, or to continue the trend, not revert it, continue. And that's what it would be the case here. If the lows are in here, and it's able to come to this point, then breaking out above here is attempt to resume the trend, which is what the case was here. Attempt to resume the trend, and their attempt was successful. Let's take a look at this on the TUSD next to finish off this video. And it's interesting because a few days ago I was talking with one of my friends and like, well, how much is a penny in Satoshi? Just one penny. And I'm thinking, it's around 300. I'm thinking, I know it's around 300. And then maybe a few minutes later, 2 minutes later, I look at this, it's like, it's 250, 254 now. So therefore, if it's 25,428 Satoshi for $1, I can divide that by 100. Right now, 254 for that. But throwing those parts aside, on the daily chart for this, looking at the complete opposite of Bitcoin, this level of resistance has so almost been tested. That's a large pierce below, and I think it's a little easier to look at it this way with the numbers up top. Support has been established, and if it breaks below it, same thing on the Bitcoin. That's kind of weak, because if you're going to sustain a rally like this, here's the spot where it could have very easily, it didn't have to top in here. It could have kept going up on that same rate and maybe have a good green move at any given time. It never did do that. And as mentioned about having a nice move, whenever you have a good play, you want to always succeed in where you came from as support, even if it's fine to go below the 18. So you have this high, you have multiple amounts of these lows. So what was the resistance when it was making these lows? Well, we've seen some here at the 265 handle, but up to 280. That was the must hold. So as it was doing this, from 271 to 282, it was still holding that area. But right in here, this fall, that said, okay, well, now can we hold and stay below it? Because sure, you can have a move like this, and I'd want to see it hold 26.5, and this period here would close at 25.8, which is noticeably below. But oftentimes, if the support's going to be hit, it's going to be breached large and then come back to it. Well, that's not the case, because after this move, we have those 5 or so days, and it's grinding lower. In this case, after a down move, when it grinded higher, it didn't do so good. So how's it going to do now when it grinds it lower? I'm just very optimistic right now on the next short-term move to be a play towards that of the 5,000 or so area. Not only just that of the Fibonacci 41, but I would expect it to pierce above the 48.48, and 5,000's a pierce. 49.95, whatever, something in that area. I don't know if what's going to be more likely first, and if it's going to go down to 37, or if it's going to pierce above here. In that maybe before it gets there, it's going to find support at this level. It hasn't been to the 18 for a while. It hasn't had a good correctionary move from that point on what would be a bullish level. But if it did, that's the must hold for Bitcoin, obviously. At that point, I would be probably on a 50-50 level on whether it would be good or bad when it comes down here. And when I say 50-50, about a 50-50 chance of a good move higher versus a good move lower from that point forward. Because this thing might not go down much. It might hold 3,800 and a half or 3,900. and have its big move, because when it's ready to go, having decent sized green candles, not a surprise to see on any given day. Might not be today, it might be 4 days from now. After all, this was many a days over 1 week. And then just all of a sudden, out of a blue, you get the situations where just, well, let's just finish it off within the hourly on here. Just out of the blue, it just goes up, like we can see, like the case was in here. You had this all long standing sideways. Maybe you get like an interesting move like this beforehand or not, and then it just goes. This was a spot here where it started going up at 1600 hours, and it just kept going. There was really no stopping it. It went up for 4 hours, and then it had a nice bullish correctionary move where it went down and then had a nice ascending triangle-ish kind of formation. It was 20 hours on this. It broke out on 7. So it took about a half of a day. And then from, say, the 7 o'clock period, it had an amazing rally for 4 hours. And that's exactly the point. That if it's going to have this big move to 5,000, don't be surprised if it happens in like 4 hours and a half or 8 hours or 2 hours, because that's very common. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.